This beautifully preserved six-sided hexagonal prism of baked clay, and it's a reddish clay, commonly known as the Taylor Prism, right, after Colonel Robert Taylor, was discovered among the ruins of Nineveh. This would be 1830 when it was discovered, the ancient capital of the Assyrian Empire. It contains the victories of Sennacherib himself, right? He's not going to record his defeats, right? He does brag that he caged Hezekiah up in his city like a bird, right? But when he says that, what is he inadvertently doing? Maybe by accident, he's telling us the city was not captured, and Hezekiah was not killed, was not taken captive. Jerusalem was not defeated. Right? It was only surrounded. It contains the victories of Sennacherib himself, the Assyrian king who had besieged Jerusalem in 701 BC. That's the start of his reign, during the reign of King Hezekiah. It never mentions any defeats, right? Just those 46 victories that he had in Judah. On the prism, Sennacherib boasts that he shut up Hezekiah the Judahite within Jerusalem, his own royal city, like a caged bird. Okay, it's a famous quote from the Taylor Prism. The Taylor Prism discovery remains one of the most important discoveries in biblical archaeology. Interesting note, Egyptian sources make mention of Sennacherib's defeat in the conflict with Judah. They're not going to give credit to the God of Israel or to that warrior angel we were talking about. Instead, they give credit for the victory to an Egyptian god who sent field mice into the camp of the Assyrians to eat their bowstrings, and thus they fled from battle. Now, if you flee from battle, that does not explain how they saw or why they saw 185,000 corpses on the ground. Okay? Mice eating bowstrings might prevent them from shooting arrows into the city, but it won't explain the death of the soldiers themselves. Right? It's baked clay. It's considered Neo-Assyrian during the reign of Sennacherib, Akkadian cuneiform. And just like the Rosetta Stone was key to archaeologists for deciphering hieroglyphics, Egyptian hieroglyphics, this prism is key to archaeologists for helping to decipher cuneiform, okay, where you carve out wedges of clay to make the letters. And this was written in Akkadian, written from left to right, not from right to left. And that's important as well, okay, because as far as we know, this is like one of the first artifacts to actually confirm the left to right rendering of script rather than the opposite direction, the way that the Israelites would have written. The text records, as I said, the first 8 campaigns of King Sennacherib, dated to 691 BC, right in the middle of his 20-year reign. There from 701 to 681 BC, 38.5 centimeters. That's about 15 inches tall. There, 16.5 centimeters is the maximum width. There, that's going to be about 6.5 inches. And then the width, 8.57 centimeters, which means each of the 6 faces is about 3 1/3 inches wide. We invite you to come up and take pictures after the presentation is over. Dr. Bach keeps reiterating, please do not touch them with your hands. Oils of your fingers, but flash photography is allowed, okay? All right, Nineveh, northern Iraq. Colonel Taylor sold to the British Museum in 1855. Some of the details there. And those are all recorded in the book that I showed you at the beginning, okay? The red and white book there at the back. It's one of the first major Assyrian documents found. This document played an important part in the decipherment of the cuneiform script. The prism is a foundation record intended to preserve King Sennacherib's achievements for posterity and the gods. The record of his account of his 3rd campaign, which is when he started his reign. Of course, those first 2 would be before he was king. But it's particularly interesting to scholars. It involved the destruction of 46 cities of the state of Judah and the deportation of 200,150 people. That's recorded in the script here. Okay, so he's going to record all his victories, but he's not going to say he defeated Jerusalem. But he's going to brag and say, well, I caged Hezekiah up like a bird. But the script goes on to say to other nations, even your gods could not stop me. You know, I invaded this country and took over this king and took these people captive, and their gods couldn't stop me. And basically, he's bragging about, the Israelite God won't be able to stop him either. And then he gets to Israel's capital city, and he stopped. And he's left with about 9% of his army after just one night. Okay, somewhere in there he needs to say, Israel's God is God. That's what he needs to say. And that's what Nebuchadnezzar ended up saying. Hezekiah, king of Judah, is said to have sent tribute to Sennacherib. This event is described from another point of view in the Old Testament books of 2 Kings and Isaiah. Right? Another point of view being the truth, right, as opposed to Sennacherib's falsehoods. Because of their disobedience and unrepentant spirit, in time Israel was deported to Babylon for precisely 70 years. We see this in Jeremiah 25. Now keep in mind, Daniel read the scroll of Jeremiah and knew that the captivity was coming to an end because he read the prophecy dealing with the 70 years. It says this, "Therefore thus saith the Lord of hosts, because you have not obeyed my words, behold, I will send for all the tribes of the north, declares the Lord, and for Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and I will bring them against this land and its inhabitants and against all these surrounding nations." Isn't it interesting that he calls Nebuchadnezzar his servant? He's a pagan king, right? "I will devote them to destruction and make them a horror, a hissing, and an everlasting desolation. Moreover, I will banish from them the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride," right? The voice of celebration. "The grinding of the millstones and the light of the lamp. This whole land shall become a ruin and a waste. And these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. Then after 70 years are completed, I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, the land of the Chaldeans, for their iniquity," because they're not guiltless either, "declares the Lord, making the land an everlasting waste." All right, so that's the Taylor prism, basically.